Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Midnight Brands coming to you again, this time with prep analysis for Thursday, September 8th, 2022. As always, we are not financial analysts or advisors. Nothing that we say or walk through is recommendations to buy or sell. Really, what we're trying to do is just highlight, areas that we think are interesting, mostly for educational, entertainment purposes type of thing. You know the drill and the risk kind of statements here. So hopefully these will make sense. Hopefully they will be adding value. Over time, we'll be providing some more content and detail around these. Certainly also interested too if folks have ideas for other things with Ninja or say Think or Swim, and kind of what tips and tricks and things like that. Drop us a comment and let us know what else you think might be helpful or beneficial in these. With that, we'll get started, and kind of typically we'll start off with our breadth review. Breadth being really the big components that have an impact in things like the S&P or the NASDAQ or even things within some of the ETFs. So like Amazon and Tesla are great examples of things that have an outlying impact in the XLY ETF. And that's a great example because as we get into the details, this is one that's at the top of the list for tonight is the XLY ETF here. And so XLY has got a nice kind of key zone there. You can see, and I think I've talked about this before, but just in case, we use the algo to track anchored VWAPs. And this one has two anchored VWAPs here at the high, right at this zone here. So you can see there's also a swing AVWAP, and swing AVWAPs come in from kind of a minute-based time frame. So that one's anchored at the highs there. Coming in, it's just about aligned with the 20-day EMA, which would be kind of an interesting play on that as well. Tomorrow, the key zone for XLY is up near the highs, 161.91 through 161.48. Moving along next is J&J. J&J is Johnson & Johnson, if you aren't aware. And J&J has one kind of nice zone up here at the highs. It's in blue, which tells me that is going to be tied with ADRs. So it's entirely possible. You can see there's pretty big range possibilities for tomorrow based upon how we open. We could come up and attack the highs here, and there's also a nice daily anchored VWAP up here at the highs of that 167 level. You can see it over here on the daily chart. So that could be a kind of interesting one up there. And of course, we could also do the opposite. But again, the point is there's lots of evidence-driven items in this zone at the highs. So it makes the J&J at 167.69 to 167.30 an interesting zone to keep an eye on for tomorrow, Thursday, September 8th. Moving along next is SQQQ. That is the one that tracks the Qs, and it's the inverse. So if the Qs are going down, SQQQ is going up. It is a leveraged ETF. Make sure, like anything, you understand it, but leveraged ETFs can really move. That's the whole purpose and point of leveraged. SQQQ has another kind of nice zone at the highs. Again, it is tying in with the ADRs, average daily range, as you may have heard us talk about before. And so its one is up here, and it's just going to be below kind of what some of today's highs were. They'll have a swing AVWAP just a little bit below, and a kind of a starting threshold, looks like, for supply and demand with some structure kind of back through that area. So kind of nice there with the SQQQs, 47.71 to 47.25. Then moving along, we get into ERX here. ERX should be an interesting one. There's a couple levels in the one for ERX. But really, this one up here at the highs is more interesting one, and that gets into the 57.36 to 57.16 area. And you can see there's, again, another kind of swing anchored VWAP in that area, and then the daily anchored VWAP is just a touch higher. So that should be a pretty interesting one. This zone here is interesting because the expectation is that we are likely to see that 20-day anchored VWAP kind of fall into this area a little bit. But really the bigger zone of interest is going to be this one up here at the highs. Moving along next is Gush. Gush is kind of, again, one of those ETFs that track oil and energy and how that's been moving. As you've probably seen, that's been a pretty interesting sector of recent. McGush is interesting levels. Again, up here at the highs. I mean, super decent range on this guy. I mean, $9, $10, $13. I mean, is not unusual. So this one's been really interesting. It'll be even more interesting tomorrow with that 20-day EMA up in this area. And I will highlight just real quick, folks, there is a kind of beautiful lightning storm outside. So if we lose power, that'll really suck. Hopefully we'll not lose power and we'll get through this quickly enough and not have to do multiple takes. With that said, moving along, the next up was IBB. Starting to get into some of the lower quality of these particular zones, but still interesting nonetheless. I mean, the IBB one is nice. You can see there's kind of a nice trend channel here. I mean, just held the bottom edge of it yesterday, and today it dipped down just a bit below, but not much. I mean, it kind of came down to this lower edge zone and just took right back. And really decent move today. I mean, $4 on IBB is kind of an outlier ADR. I mean, it's certainly not extreme by any means. If you see this bottom section here, this is getting into the ADRs. The orangish line there, kind of that's horizontal across the whole thing, is what the average kind of extremes are. Not the average ADR, but kind of the average edge of the extremes. And then you can see like the ultimate extremes are still up even higher. Anyways, to hit on the IBB one, there's two zones in here that are of interest. One at the bottom is going to have ADRs, but it's also obviously going to have yesterday's lows, and it'll also have Tuesday's lows in there. And then above, just below today's highs, we're going to have a little bit of structure here, kind of looking back, look left type of thing. We also have an intraday swing AVWAP right here in this zone at that 122.80 to 122.55. So quite an interesting look for tomorrow. And it's also interesting above that, you can see some other zones that are highlighted here. Right, we've got the 20-day and 50-day EMA starting to come together. And we can also see that there's a swing AVWAP and a daily anchored VWAP coming down to line up with those. So be interesting to see what this whole biotech space does, kind of how it progresses and what plays out of that. Moving along in a completely different sector is HD for Home Depot. And Home Depot has one zone, higher or RoyalFlush zone as we've termed it, coming up tomorrow. It's up near that 300 level. Oops. Didn't mean to select those. So HD, it's got, again, kind of that the-look setup coming in. We've got that higher edge zone there with a swing anchored VWAP, and you got the 20 and 50 just coming right into it. So it'd be super interesting to see kind of what and how this one plays out here. Also similar to the last one with IBB, there's been kind of this transferred trend line between these two, and this one's had a couple of touches on the bottom, which makes it interesting to see how it plays out there. So kind of a nice one, 387 to 299.83. I think we'll hit on AMD and SVIXI here last. Certainly some other good ones there that you can pull up and take a look at and check them out. But hit on AMD. I remember looking through this one a little bit earlier. Didn't clean up all the stuff there, but looking through AMD earlier, the one that I noticed on this, get this out of here. The one that I noticed earlier on AMD here is going to be this one here at the lows, and this is actually a weekly anchored VWAP, which is tying into this one. This is daily here too, but really that weekly coming all the way. No, actually that's the daily. Yeah, that's the daily. This zone still on AMD is still pretty nice. So it's at the bottom edge of this supply and demand. We're getting into some extremes here. You can see looking at what's called the symmetrical extremes on the 20-day and 50-day. We were definitely coming down into some lower edges of that symmetrical extreme. Obviously a bit of caution in looking at these. I mean, semis have been kind of weak over the last several weeks. I mean, you can see AMD here. I mean, it's pretty much just, not been a whole lot of green days here at all. I mean, today certainly was green, but this has been pretty down straight for the last week and a half. So again, AMD be interesting there at that lower level. I'll hit on SVIXI. Oops. Hit on SVIXI, and then we're going to flip over to the overall high scores which has quite a number in there today. Oof, didn't clean up SVIXY. So cleaned it up on my other chart, but didn't clean it up here. Apologies for that, folks. Again, still trying to work out all the kinks here and so forth. Hopefully these are, again, adding some value and giving a little bit more of a picture than just a bunch of text on the screen, to show you kind of what's out there, what are the key levels, and what's been going on for each of these tickers. Again, the whole point for these were to try to remove the noise and find key areas that should be of interest, as opposed to trying to scan the entire universe of stocks. Let's find the key ones and take note of them, and then trade accordingly. And so tomorrow for SVIXY, that key level is going to be, oh, what the heck? That's why I didn't actually click on it. That sucks. Really, really sucks. Sorry, folks. This has been how many of errors on SVIXY here? I really apologize. I did clean that one up before. That was the wrong chart. So SVIXY, that explains why there was 2 zones on it. SVIXY's one is going to be just below what today's highs were. It's coming into that transfer trend line on the 30-minute chart. So it'll be really, really interesting to see kind of how this one plays out with that daily anchored VWAP falling. And this will actually be the representation for the weekly, because it's a thicker red line there for me on that one. So it'll be super interesting to see kind of what and how this one plays out. I mean, this could be a continuation, which would, again, if you remember, SVIXY tracks the inverse of the VIX. So if UVIXY is tracking the VIX and VIX is going up, UVIXY is going up. SVIXY, if the VIX is going down, SVIXY will be going up. So pretty interesting zone on that one. And with that, why don't we pause for a quick second? So now we're going to flip over to the overall ticker review. And again, with the overall, it's just going through and scanning kind of the rest of the universe of tickers out there that we've looked at. And so now we will flip back over and start taking a look at what the ones are for there. And in this particular one for S-Edge, it had a few zones in here. It looked a little bit overwhelming to me when I was looking at it, but that's, you know, look, the whole point is to try to find and highlight areas. So we could have absolutely taken this one out and removed it, but thought it was still, you know, interesting to show. Like, nothing is perfect. You still have to use your head to look at it and try to make decisions. But we're, again, trying to highlight is what are the areas you want to take a look at. I mean, certainly you've got the zones at the low. And this is a pretty big zone, but again, S-Edge today had a $34 freaking ADR day. I mean, that's massive for the average daily range, and for today, it had $34 a range. I mean, that's just that's out there. That's 3 times almost, kind of, or 2 times what it looks like the normal stuff is, that $12-15. So, and you can see even from the ADR percentage. I mean, this was definitely up there today. And it's just getting close to coming into some of its symmetrical extremes. So it'd be one to keep on watch actually for the next few days and see where key levels come up. I mean, there's definitely some wicks and stuff back here if you look left, and there's definitely some bigger wicks up here further above. So S-Edge is a very, very interesting one with some kind of bigger levels up here. In fact, it had one really big level way up here at this 340 area, and you can see that's going to kind of line back up in this area here. We had some of these bigger gaps and whatnot. So keep an eye on that one and see what happens with it. And so moving along, next is going to be BSX. BSX will be kind of, again, like most of these, interesting to watch. Its key zone is going to be at the lows. So BSX there, what you got, it's down in 41.17 to $41. So really nice that it's super small. Definitely had a kind of outlier move today. I mean, $1.30 when the average is kind of in that 50 cents, 47. I mean, so not the biggest of ADRs. And you can see there actually are a couple of zones that are highlighted here. As I've mentioned before, the ones that are with the dash lines qualify technically is what we've termed as the royal flush. But the biggest one, kind of scoring zone that is picked up by the algo was actually this middle zone. There's a ton of evidence of things that we watch and pay attention to that are in this middle zone. So, I mean, you could even see something where, I don't really like doing this, but you could even potentially see something where you come back down and grab that, and come up and do something along these kind of lines, and just set some higher lows. Do something crazy like that where you come back up and take out yellow dash lines gap fill. So I mean that could be something that proves to be interesting. You just have to keep an eye out. That's that one. Moving along next was HSY, which was Hershey's. Hershey had two zones in it, but really the bigger zone is going to be down below at that, where is it, 227 price level, not the one that's up above. So really this bigger level, and part of that is, again, you've got the 20-day EMA in here. It's just below today's high, so it could set up for a pretty nice continuation. If we come down in here, make a higher low, kind of off what we've done today and yesterday, a few days, and then come up and grab and go into this bigger zone up here. Continuing to move along, we've got WMT, Walmart. Again, we'll try to see if we can't keep these to about 20 minutes, so I'll try to go through the next handful a little quick. Walmart, decent enough ADR. It's not a sexy name, but $2-3 a move kind of on a daily basis, and if you catch that right zone, I mean, that's where things can really help align for you. And so tomorrow that key zone is going to be down here at the 20-day EMA. There is daily anchored VWAP in there. I mean, it's just kind of a nice potential. Anything can happen, anything's possible, but this would be an area of interest that we would keep an eye out for at that 133.46 to 133.09. And then moving next along up in the list is MRO. MRO has the nice one kind of up there at the highs. It also has two zones, but the bigger zone is down below at that 24 level. MRO fits in with all the rest of the kind of energy things, right? It's marathon oil. So this one gets interesting again, kind of at that lows with the 50-day EMA, which is what this particular line tells me. So 20-day is that white kind of dot dash line. The 50-day is that black dot dash line. So pretty interesting review on that one. And again, could do something where we come down, grab that 50 again. Maybe we even just take out the top of this zone and then try to touch up there at the blue area, which would be ADRs. So it'd be an interesting one to, again, watch, keep an eye out on. And moving along next is AXP, which is American Express. American Express, as you can see, has one zone. It's the 155.14 to 154.91. It's going to have a couple of pieces of interest in there, as well as the 20-day EMA. I should highlight and talk through, there's a number of other pieces of evidence in here that we're not quite at the spot to open up and share with everybody. We will be getting there as we start to get pieces of this exposed and the indicators written out to share with everybody. Right now, we're just kind of highlighting these key zones of interest and kind of where you'd want to be watching. So it's not just about EMAs or SMAs or daily anchored VWAPs. Those are all part of the pieces of evidence that are looked at here, and kind of the methodology that we've learned and been trained on. But this particular one for American Express, again, is at the highs there, and it's got a little bit of structure, not a lot, but you can see there's been some wicks through these areas here, and the ADR is just above, so be a nice one to pay attention to and look at. Moving on, next is SLB, Schlumberger. Okay, and so Schlumberger has the zone just above there, and that should be an interesting one. 37.55 to 37.47. Be going through and actually taking out a gap fill in there too. And then you have your 20 and 50 day, or sorry, 20 and 200 day just above on that. And then there's also been some structure in this 37.50 area kind of back through here. If we zoom out a little bit on the 30-minute chart, you can just kind of look back left and see kind of what's been going on through there, and even over here in the daily. So nice one. Moving on, next is JKS. JKS is the solar company, and if you remember the run it had back, oh gosh, when was that? Was that 2021? I think it was. Maybe it was 2020. Actually, I think it was 2020 where it had that massive, yeah. It was all the way back here in 20. It was just day after day after day, and I remember everybody kept trying to find the top, and it kept shorting, and then finally had that day where it cracked. And man, was that, I remember that one pretty vivid. That was a really nice crack on that day here. Open up and shot up shortly after the open there, and just, tagged that 90 mark, and was just kind of straight down after that. I know I caught some of that move actually that day. It was pretty nice, but anyway, since then, it's if I remember, it's lower on volume, and the bid-ask spreads were decently wide. So to be one, you'd have to really find that spot and zone in on it and make sure you've got the right entry. JKS though had the one zone at the 60.56 to 60.25. It's kind of the lower end. It's gonna be like a trend guide and a couple other pieces in there. So be an interesting one. Again, 20-day is kind of set up, but it's just over and under on this. Like it's still trying to consolidate and find some trend in here. So be one to watch and keep an eye on. If the solar space, remember CSIQ was in the list yesterday, Canadian Solar. So if these solars could really get something moving along, that's where you'd want to watch out for the Jenkos and CSIQ and I think TAN and a couple others to keep an eye out on. Why don't we go ahead and just round out? I guess we can just round out with what was it? Oh, actually, no. I remember we were looking at Abbott earlier, ABT, and that one looked pretty interesting there. Abbott Laboratories had a pretty nice one at the highs. It's got some recent structure that it's been at, and just above a supply and demand zone. So that one should be really interesting. Kind of look tomorrow to see how the ABT one plays out. So, and ABT again, 105.65 through 105.46. So, I think that's it. I think we'll call that prep analysis there. Again, hopefully these will prove beneficial and helpful. If you have comments, questions, certainly put them in there. We'll try to get back to them. And there's things like ninja tips and tricks or things of that nature. Certainly just pass them along, and we'll see about doing a separate video on those. Got a number of ones kind of on the list of what we could or should do, and so we're starting to pull that together. Take a little while. Again, this is early days of sharing this work and analysis, so catch y'all later, and hope you have a good one. Bye now.